Dragon 6 Golf here. Just want to do a video of me cleaning my 9mm pistol. Simple, just watch as I do it and I'll probably give you some overtake on it. But thanks for watching, hope you enjoy. Okay, so this is a Smith & Wesson 9mm compact semi-automatic pistol. Each magazine holds 15 rounds. This weapon's special to me because my wife bought it for me for my birthday one year, long time ago. Now this is not the most expensive weapon. It's not the most valuable weapon. It's something you can get from Academy probably still today. It's a Smith & Wesson model SW9VE. So, some things about this before I start cleaning the weapon. Top part is metal. Bottom part is polymer. Magazine. Button right here, you push that, magazine comes out. As you can see, it comes with a 15 round magazine. Nothing's in there though. So, in case you don't know anything about these weapons, on this side there's a lever there, and this is what you push up on to make the slide lock to the rear. I'll show you. Nothing happened because I didn't have that up. Hard to show you, but it's up. Now, when the weapon's in this position, there's two ways you can charge the receiver forward. One way is to depress that, it goes forward. The next way is to pull the slide back until you hear it click and you let go. Now, either way is fine to do, whichever one you prefer. However, I will say in the military we are taught, or at least my training taught me to, at least like that. And the reason for that is because after you fire your 15 rounds in the magazine, empty magazine's in here, and the slide goes back on the last round, the weapon stays like this. And it's built like this because the magazine on the tip has a little lip here which causes the weapon to stay back when there's no bullet to load. So while you're in the military, first of all, I see a lot of shooters at the range. They will, carefully release their magazine, set it down. And I understand that because you only have, like, this only came with 2 magazines. You can buy more, however, you kind of want to take care of your gear. But in the military, we had so many magazines, it was crazy. So we would actually, on the last one, we would just drop it, as you can see. We would grab the loaded one from our belt, put it in, and we would get into firing position already. So what happens if you use your other hand, you've now taken your hand off of the grip. And what does that do? You have to realign, you have to go back, add time. But instead, if you have your hand gripped like this and you push down the lever, you're ready to go. So again, it's your preference, but I've been taught this way for so many years. Now another thing about this weapon, there's no hammer. You can't see the hammer. It's called a striker fired weapon. So inside here, when you pull on the trigger, the striker inside is what hits the bullet and doesn't have a visible hammer. I prefer the hammer because usually when you have a hammer and it's locked to the rear, it takes less pressure to pull the trigger. However, if you have a striker fired weapon, it takes more pounds of pressure to pull it. But you can get used to both of them. I've gotten used to both. I have both types of pistols. As you can see on this one, this model, there's no safety devices whatsoever. And later on I'll show you a handgun with safety on there. So If you've never taken the weapon apart, it's actually pretty simple. If you look right here, and it's on both sides, there's a little like button here. It's not a button you can't push in, but you pull down on it. So to take the weapon apart, you kind of rock the slide back like that. It takes practice if you haven't done that before. You rock it back, you pull down, hard to do when you're on camera, and then to release it, you push the trigger. Now, as you can see, I'm holding the weapon a certain type of way. I'm holding it like this because there's a spring down here, and I just want to make sure I don't lose it or drop it. It won't fall out easily, but it can. So you have two parts now. You have the plastic, well, with some metal in it. As you can see how the trigger housing works. It's actually pretty simple, right? And then here, I didn't talk to you this before, but if you see this hole, it's here, so that way you can see when you had a magazine in the weapon, you can see if there's a bullet there. You'll be able to see the brass. If there's no brass there, it means it's not loaded, but I don't trust that. So one thing I'm always thinking about is pointing this weapon in the safe direction. Obviously right now it's not going to fire, but when I had it together, there's nobody around. I'm not pointing in the direction, and I know I don't have any ammunition in there, but I always assume the weapon's loaded. So right here, you see how it's kind of dirty. It's been a little bit since I've cleaned this weapon. You can see the spring here. So just to take it out, it's pretty simple. You just pull it up on this side. Boom, that's it. Put this to the side. Now you have the barrel, and the barrel is pretty simple to pull out. You just push right here, push up, and the barrel slides out. So now basically you have trigger housing, the slide, the barrel, the spring, and the magazine. So you can call it a clip. And this magazine, you can tell, I said it holds 15 rounds, but this one says 16. But I put 15 in there just the amount of pressure it has in there. It's good to clean this too. Just make sure it's not getting corroded or rusted. And just make sure the spring is still, you know, good to go. So you should always clean your weapons, especially after you go to the range. But if you haven't used it in a while, it's good to pull them out and clean them. And this helps lubricate them. I would never want to pull out one of my handguns and have it freeze up on me because I haven't maintained them. Now there's all sorts of lubricating oils you can use. I use hops. You can buy this at Target, Walmart, Academy. There's other brands out there, and basically these help keep the weapons from getting rust on them, and also it lubricates the weapon. And then, like I said, it's important to lubricate the weapon. So first thing I'm going to do is take this old t-shirt, which works great, and by the way, this is an old t-shirt too, and I'm just going to wipe away the film that firing weapon leaves behind. And it's carbon, it's from gunpowder, it's from usage, it's from rubbing back and forth from the slide and the trigger housing. And I'm not so worried about this right here. However, if you've ever been in the military and you try to turn the weapon back into the armor, this would be a no-go. All this black stuff right here would be a no-go. I don't have the same standards I used to, but I clean them just to make sure they're good. So for this part, I'm gonna kind of lubricate the weapon first. A little bit goes a long way, so I'm gonna start with the outside. I find this part, just taking apart my weapons and cleaning them, is very, very satisfying. Satisfying because I'm doing something I love. I've been doing this for many years, since I was a child, and as it's very enjoyable. Now what's funny is when you're deployed or in the field, we're constantly cleaning our weapon, especially in the desert. You don't want your weapon to malfunction on you. And there'd be even sometimes where there'd be so much sand around that if you put too much lubricant, that sand builds up in certain areas, and that's not good either. So you have to make sure, yes, you're lubricating your vehicle, your weapon, but you're making sure that there's not so much on there that it's going to collect more dirt than it should. Now you can do the same thing to the barrel. Again, right now I'm not really cleaning it, I'm just lubricating the weapon. I don't use any on the spring, and this is just metal spring, just like on a plastic housing. I just make sure I wipe off any carbon or debris that might be on there from the bullets. This part, I use a little bit of lubricant, I'll put some right here, but other than that, it doesn't need much because it's mostly plastic. Now they make these weapons out of plastic, and it's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing. It's just some people have a preference, some people prefer all metal. I don't mind either way. I'm not expecting to be chopping this or anything like that. However, it does decrease the weight of the weapon because this part is mostly plastic. It's very light. I've never had a problem. Of course, all the weapons we use in the military, when I was in, for example, the M9mm 9mm pistol, the Beretta we used was all metal. Had some weight, but you know, it's not really anything much to complain about. Alright, and I just wipe down with that oil I just used. I just wipe down a little bit on the magazine. Make sure it's good to go. Okay, so the next thing that I want to focus on, look, I left some blackness on there. Now with this weapon being, I guess, nickel, it's easy to see the dirt and all that's left. So I'm looking down this barrel, I don't know if you can see it, but there's some carbon in there. Not much, just a little bit. So how do you get rid of that? Open up my cleaning kit. It actually looks like a bullet. There we go. Now, it's a short barrel, it didn't need a lot for it, but you want to make sure you grab one of these brushes here and that it's wide enough to really get in the barrel and clean it. Okay, so I'm gonna test this. Oh yeah, it's too big. Screw this back in. Let's try this side instead. Yep, that's better. Okay. I had to put this little attachment on there. Screw that to the rod, and without anything on there, I'm just gonna push it through. Saw that dust come out. I'm gonna push it back the other way. I'm gonna push it through. More, see, it's still dirty. That's the importance of getting a brush that barely fits in there, but it's not gonna get stuck. You'll feel it. You'll see. See how smooth it is now? A couple more times. My dot is looking up. Alright, that's good. take this apart. I don't need this anymore. This brush. Put that away. Now I also lubricate the inside of the barrel. I'm going to show you how I do that here shortly. Now I'm very comfortable cleaning my weapons around my kids because they got to learn not to be afraid of it, not to fear it. But they got to be able to understand that it's not a toy, it's not like Call of Duty, there's consequences to firing your weapon. So what I'm doing now is I'm looking for a piece with a little eyelet. See there? I'm going to place that back in lieu of the brush that was on there. I'm going to fold my paper. Now most cleaning kits, they come with little papers like this. And I just kind of feed it through here. There you go. And we just kind of brush it back like that. Put some lube on both sides. And this time I'm going to go from the direction that the weapon is fired. So if this was in the weapon and then the barrel is here, the bullet goes in here. And I'm just going to push it through. Bring it through all the way. And only go one direction on this. The reason for this is there's barreling inside of the barrel. There's not barreling. Spirals in there, so that way when you fire the handgun, the bullet goes through. The spiraling inside there gives the bullet rotation, which allows it to be more accurate and stay on target. That's why having a short barrel pistol like this is not as accurate as maybe a 6-inch barrel. And this barrel is about 3 inches. Alright, so we're just going to take a look in here. Shiny and clean. Yep, it's good to go. Okay, so I lubricated all my parts. Now let's put this sucker together. I'm just doing the opposite way. Didn't do such a good job in here. I left a little bit too much oil. I don't like excess oil. It's not a perfect job. It didn't have to be perfect. I'm not turning this into an armor in the supply room or anything like that. So just good enough to maintain it because I'm going to go out and use it again anyway. So you just feed the barrel in like that and just drop it down. It's easy. Just make sure it's back the way it was before. See? Now you sit it down. You get your spring. So this part of the spring. See, it's got a tip on there, and then this one has a lip. So this tip right here, you insert it into the bottom of the barrel, and it's got a little housing right here, and that's where the barrel goes, or that's where the spring goes. And you slightly just push it down. You push towards the front, you push it down at the same time. There's a little lip in the barrel. And it's seated, just make sure it's seated straight. Now to put it together, you just slide the weapon like so. Now I kind of mentioned in my other videos that you learn a functions check, and what that does, that ensures that when you put the weapon together, it's going to fire when needed. And basically, first thing you do with an empty magazine, of course, you make sure it locks to the rear without doing anything. And that's to ensure that when you fire your last round, that it locks to the rear, so that way it's ready to be, the magazine is ready to be ejected, and put your new one in and slide it forward. So next thing, you just make sure it slides forward, then you pull the trigger, and you hold it, and you slide it forward. Release, you can hear it. Heard that, and you pull the trigger, it's good to go. And like I said, you can either release the button or it can just drop back like that. Okay, so there you have your clean weapon. Now, last thing I want to talk about is a lot of questions on what kind of ammunition I carry. Now, if I'm downrange, I'll just shoot a regular full metal jacket target round. Here, this is not 9mm, it's a 40, but as you can see, it's just a plain bullet. It's made for paper targets and regular targets. A real life full metal jacket would have just a rounded end on it, and this full metal jacket is made to over penetrate your target. So what that means is you shoot at something. Say this is some flesh. You shoot at something, it's meant to hit and go through. Hit and go through. Target rounds like this with a blunt end, they'll hit, go through, but they'll lose velocity and just drop down. Now I have seen 9mm rounds while deployed with the green tips. Mostly that's armor piercing rounds. But the other type of bullet that I use to carry is right here is a hollow point. And what hollow points do, and the reason why we want to carry them, is because when you hit a target, they're not made to over penetrate. They're made to just hit and splatter within. So it hits, the bullet hits, and it stays inside the target. And the reason why you want that is because you don't want to, sometimes when you shoot close quarters, you don't want it to over penetrate the target to the point where it hits something you're not supposed to. So let's say a guy comes into your house, you shoot him with the hollow point, it stays in him, that's fine. But let's say he comes in the house, you have the full metal jacket in, it goes through him, goes through the house, and hits something you don't want to hit your family member. That's a different story. Alright, so that's just a simple video. Good morning, Layla. Of this nice 9mm pistol. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. Drag Sis Golf out.